Hello friends, and here is the karma reading. I'm still testing. I still don't know if I'm going to keep this reading, so if you like it you have to say something, or I will save myself about 30 hours of work and kind of like just continue with my other monthlies. I really think like we are getting through quite a bit. I have modified the spread a little bit this time in order to be a little bit more efficient. So let's start with just like telling you that there are still some specials going on. If you guys want your reading, like you're going to get it sort of like one level up. So instead of like regular 2 to 3 weeks wait, I am kind of like dishing it out in a week, and if for some reason I'm a little bit late, you get a little bit more time added to it. And if you really want a rush, which before it was 7 days, now you get it in 3 days, and urgent was 3 days before, now pretty much you're getting within 24 hours. Then if you're in North America, you're getting, if it's done between 2 p.m., then you're getting it the same day. Also guys, the X spread is on kind of like looks like permanent special, and one special that many of you already asked me about is really coming up, and is going to be 2019 annual scope. And for those of you who enjoy 2018 scope, please come on my website cattarot.ca and put yourself on a mailing list, because I'm going to be letting you know this pre-order price of $19.99 per sign or $39.99 for all signs is basically going to last only maybe 3 weeks, and is going to probably be enclosed in the monthly reading, which is kind of like coming in about a few days. And take advantage of it, because otherwise it's kind of like jumping up to $29.99 and $59.99. Okay, so let's go to where we have to be. You see, I was not that long. I'm reading this with Kipper, and I'm reading this with Cosmic Tarot. This is kind of like giving me a good combination. And I actually told you that I have sort of like simplified this, because I find this, I mean, you knew that the spread was like just like I'm in work in progress. So now I want to see what is dark, what is light in the situation. These are significators. They are the same in every reading, and they are simply just like sort of like the areas that I really want to explore. The reasons behind the situation, the guidance, and what are the karmic basically lessons that we actually need to learn in all of that. So let's start, guys. Hi Aries, and welcome to your Twin Flames monthly for October. And again guys, this is a general reading. Please check your ascendant, check your moon sign, and if you really want to get more details, check your Venus. If you're cross-watching for somebody else's sign, then check their Mars sign as well. So let's start. Let's do things that are still sort of like brewing in the background. Well, there is a Three of Cups and change. So Three of Cups in this deck, keep in mind that every tarot deck is a little bit different, and it kind of has a different messages. This particular deck is like really complex. So here we actually see two dancers in a very gracious pose, very much unlike three women dancing in a traditional Rider-Waite deck. So the cups, if you can see it, are absolutely overflowing, and you can even see this in the background. So it looks like that this is a story about new lovers and about kind of like complete self-absorption. You know, like how when we start dating somebody new, and when things click, we just like spend as much time with them as possible, sometimes neglecting our friends, because technically this card is about friendship, but not in this deck, right? So given that this is like coming on this significator Luna, something in the dark, it sounds to me that, well, again, two ways of looking at it, like whether you're like just attracting, you're basically a twin flame and like seeking for him or her, or you have already kind of like met somebody, right? So looking in the description like below, just look, it has a heart in front of it. I have this entire video made description about twin flames if you're confused what it is. Now this is really telling me that if you are looking for someone, that someone is like brewing and it's currently kind of like maybe in a different relationship, but things might change. If you have already met someone, then again, they could be kind of like going through some kind of like phase, or this can actually really talk about you kind of like feeling, oh my gosh, like we kind of like were like two peas in a pod, like what in the world change, kind of a thing, right? Because this kind of like really tells me that maybe there was like not enough of looking in all directions. You know, like relationships are like a travel. Yeah, you're going maybe in the direction where you're going forward, but at the same time, especially because we have this kind of like whole motive of packing up. So it could mean maybe that somebody kind of like moved on, but that's not what I'm seeing in this card, because the next one is Lovers over here. Like, it's kind of like talking about, you know, maybe moving, maybe somebody moved, maybe your twin flame is just like simply kind of like long distance kind of like away, but there was like something that kind of like came through it, right? So definitely it could mean moving on from, you know, like a relationship as well. And that can be like, I mean, kind of like different circumstances that maybe you're leaving behind, whether they're physical or emotional. It's like definitely kind of something that is kind of like shifting. It's like something that you are not fully aware of, or that is something that is still brewing behind. So what is kind of like known, and this is kind of like really where the combination becomes really, really interesting. Look at this Lovers card. Isn't that gorgeous? Like, I mean, of course, they are not even subtle. Like, look, we have the little two birds loving each other. We have the flowers. Then we have like this yin and yang, and we have this little Star of David, Merkaba star, and sort of like kind of like really, really connectivity. I don't know if you know that scientifically they did the studies on mating, and they found the species that have the least difference in the size, like doves, they are the most faithful. The ones that actually different size the most, like humans, we are like sort of like falling toward there, they actually can be the least faithful. So go figure it out. Like, I mean, ever since I read it, I started freaking out about dating tall men, and that's kind of like my type. So just scratch it. If you don't like it, just like scratch it. That's like kind of like the best. Just like pass it by you. Now, this card, the Lovers, it's usually the card of change, and that's kind of like really, really interesting, because it's still kind of like named Lovers, even though it kind of like talks about some kind of like direction, a possibly new direction. It can talk about union and love and blend of opposites, but also talks about tantra, like, I mean, strong sexual powers basically, and harmony. It's definitely about deep feelings that are kind of like evoking. But look, then we have imprisonment. So something that was coming to the surface. So for those of you who have somebody that you are like really questioning, maybe that person is like simply currently stuck, especially like you have like this 29, 29, 11, that famous master number. You can check my website, cattarot.ca, for this numerology kind of like meaning. That's kind of like really important when we see those 11s. And look at this 911. Interestingly enough, cycle kind of like needs to finish. Maybe you guys had back and forth with somebody. If you're looking for somebody else, that somebody else is really not ready, that somebody else is like stuck somewhere. And it could be that for both, whether you met your twin flame or not, that there is like a blockage, or this person is like with somebody else at this point. And maybe that's the case, because here you have a Wheel of Fortune and adjudication. For some of you, this can really talk about really divorcing somebody, or definitely can talk about separation. We have a woman and we have a man over here. Of course, not everybody here is man and a woman in couples. And it's kind of like, look, he's really like, when somebody puts finger on their face like that, it's like kind of like, I really don't know what to do in this kind of like situation. This is definitely karmic card. You're getting like this confirmation. This is a karmic connection. And usually when it turns around, it like talks about the phase where things just don't seem to be working right, that everything seems to be off, right? Even if it's something good, you get return from a taxman, but they keep it because there's like something else that you owe or you didn't really know, sort of a thing, right? So adjudication, if you are not in any kind of like legal kind of like disputes or kind of like dealing that way, it just like talks about kind of like maybe seeing therapist, or kind of like needing to kind of like, you might actually get certificate documents as well. But this is also telling me that there is like sort of like a need to resolve some kind of like problem or disagreement, and hence kind of like outside help is needed. So I don't really see it as a friend, and don't ask friends to kind of like settle the fights between lovers, because that never ends well for the friend for sure, and then you would lose a friend, and that's very valuable. Of course, I'm Aquarius and telling you this, but this is kind of like really also telling me that even though something is currently not working well, that the matters will get resolved. And however, it doesn't kind of like indicate that it's going to be resolved in your favor, but it's quite the opposite. It might even feel that you're not going anywhere with the wheel of fortune turn around. Like, the thing with this wheel to understand, this is the karmic wheel, and that's why it's a karmic card. It keeps spinning. Here, like, it had 4 kings on it in the very old decks, and here the king on top would say, I rule, right? The one, oh my gosh, I do not reign, right? And this one, I am going to reign, right? And this one here, I just have reign. Sort of like you can see this kind of like 3 kind of possibilities here. The person is still kind of like feeling that power close by, where there is like a complete loss here, which is basically happening over here. But guess what? When you're on the bottom, the only way is going up. So that's like something to take in account. So like, it's going to be a loss temporarily of some kind of like sort, which is kind of like emotional connection is there. So guidance for you is 4 of Swords and thoughts. Now that's very interesting, because look at this big 4, which is basically kind of like really they're kind of like a lot laid down, and 4 of Swords generally in the other ones are really talking about kind of like resting, but this kind of like big 4 is a sign for Jupiter, which is kind of like the planet of luck and expansion, right? But it's also about understanding and philosophy and law. It almost looks like they're like sitting on this carpet, and I don't know if that's a magic carpet, flying carpet, but this kind of like 4 men probably represent human community, right? And kind of like where conflicts are subjected to the goods of society. I keep getting here that there is like issue that kind of like needs to be resolved on the outside. It needs kind of like stuff, but influence of Jupiter in this card is really talking about that they're able to lay down their swords without losing face, right? It's also talking about recovery from pain and recovery from illness, and there is like an oasis here, so lucky them, like being in the middle of the desert and finding it. I really think that's a myth, finding water in the middle of the desert, but it's okay, I'll trust them. And this is talking about mental work. It is like sword, and the Lovers here is the mental work. So you're like really connected to your twin, and it's kind of like indicating solitude. And obviously there are really thoughts about your partner, and he is definitely painting his ideal woman over here. They're like thoughts that are mutual. They're back and forth. So I'm really wondering what has happened here. Did somebody like moved away and things happen, you know, the distance, sometimes they say the distance makes the heart grow fonder, but it could be the opposite effect. So, or somebody is in a relationship where they cannot break, or they don't want to break, or they're going through this legal process themselves, but the thoughts are there for sure. So let's see, what is your karmic lesson at this period of time. Wow, you're getting 8 of Cups and total labor. Wow, 3 and 8, 11 again. It is kind of like really, really interesting that you're getting this, because this is really talking about some hard work. This is really calling for you. And this guy always, whenever I see this, it kind of like looks to me like John Travolta. I just cannot help it. You know, kind of like, what was this Saturday night, not Saturday Night Live, Saturday night, like, you know, this dancing movie. Kind of like this card is usually about trying to figure out what is the best for you. In the other decks, it shows all the 8 cups upright. So like, you're wondering, like, why the hell you're leaving? Like, you have everything. But here we can see somebody sad, and we can see somebody kind of like depressed, right? And also we see this kind of like wrecked boat behind him, and this entire pier that he's on seems to be kind of like rotted. So maybe this man hasn't completed basically his journey, and maybe he was not even able to start it. So there is like talking about that some kind of like hopes are turning into disappointment. And so there is like some kind of like point of determination at this period of time, where whether the situation is going to improve or it's going to deteriorate. So it's basically talking about accepting circumstances. And this is kind of like usually when we feel depression, when we feel apathy, and that's kind of like generally reaction to setbacks, because 12 on labor definitely talks about dangerous conditions and working really hard and basically not having results, and it's all kind of like negativity kind of thing. So this is kind of like effort to kind of lack of effort, or failure, like, I mean, failure to maybe make an effort to complete a project, even when the signs are pointing to success. So I'm like really wondering, Aries, if somebody here was not really fighting for you strong enough, or are you finding that certain things are just like getting too hard to move forward, like that things got in the way and then necessary to handle forever. So it is going to be a very spiritual period for you, right? Because it is something, you see the cups here and here, something that is like brewing behind the background. But you do have 2 majors which are saying to me that just, you know what, keep going through it. Your sign is like the brave one, and this is like right now learning something about yourself and about the whole circumstance. And again, guys, this is a general reading. As I said, please check your ascendant and check your moon sign at the very least. And of course, like, I mean, to get more detailed reading about where your relationship is going, please check any of the options that I have on my website, cattarot.ca. And until the next time, guys, I love you and all the best.